Hello, welcome to Captain Dorja's Armory. This is Captain Dorja. We're going to be doing another World of Tanks tips episode right now, and this World of Tanks tips is going to be about one thing and one thing only. We're going to look at how to read various tank statistics to know what you're looking at when you're looking at information on your tanks. The first thing that we're going to look at, this is the thing we're going to look at the most, is guns. And the reason why I'm doing this is I've heard multiple people, myself included, that when we start playing the game, we're like, what on earth am I looking at right here? Is this gun more accurate than the last one? What is going on? So we're going to look at guns. And this holds true on low tier and high tier guns. So it's not really... I'm going to use the Tiger 2 guns just because I'm looking at a Tiger 2 right now. But, it doesn't matter if you're looking at prospective guns for your, Tiger 2 Tier 8 Heavy, or if you're looking at guns for your M3 Stuart Tier 3 Light Tank. The same principles apply. So, here we are. We're going to bring up information on various guns for this tank. Now, we're going to just put them next to each other so that we can see all the information. Okay, so here we go. Gun stats, how to read them. First of all, the caliber of your gun in World of Tanks is almost completely pointless. There's only really one situation where gun caliber comes into play, and it is quite rare. So, we're not going to talk about that at all. Basically, the caliber of your gun is essentially meaningless. So the first characteristic, rate of fire. Rate of fire is very, very simple, and it's given in rounds per minute, and it's really completely straightforward. There's nothing questionable about the rate of fire. The rate of fire on the gun, if it's 7.79, like on the 88mm L71, that means you can fire 7.79 rounds per minute, assuming you fire the gun as soon as it is finished loading. If you do that in 1 minute, you should fire 7.79 rounds. So that's pretty straightforward. And obviously, the trend is as guns go up in power, the rate of fire goes down. That's a fairly common theme throughout World of Tanks. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is the aiming time, because that is also very straightforward. Aiming time is how long it takes for the gun to fully aim. So, while you're driving around in battle, swinging your turret side to side, going at full speed, going over terrain, your gun is pointing in the direction that you're aiming it, but you're not prepared to take a shot. So when you want to fire, if you want a high chance of hitting, you need to stop. You need to stop your tank, and you need to aim the gun, which makes sense because if you think about it like a real tank, your gunner can have his gun pointed in the general direction of the enemy, but that doesn't mean that if he fires he's going to hit anything. He's going to need to actually lay the gun. Now, World of Tanks is a very arcade game, so drawing similarities to real life is usually not that great of an idea, but in this case, it makes perfect sense. It's totally sensible, and it would be heinously unbalanced if you didn't have to do that anyway. So aiming time is something that we all have to live with, and it's a good thing that we all have to live with it. Aiming time is a really straightforward stat, 2.9 seconds. That means if you want to stop and fire the gun, it's going to take you 2.9 seconds to fully aim that shot. In reality, I would say it takes longer than that, because when you stop, you're going to have to fine aim a little bit more, and that's going to slow your aiming process a little bit. So if it says it takes 2.9 seconds to aim, it's probably going to take more like 3.5 for you to actually do it in the real world, maybe even 4 seconds. Obviously, in this case, a lower aiming time is better, because that means a couple of things. It means if you're going to take the Tiger 2 and you're going to poke it around a corner to fire at somebody, and you've got this 88mm gun, you have to expose for 3 seconds in order to fire, whereas with this fully upgraded 105mm L68 gun, you only need to expose for about 2.5 seconds. So that's definitely better. The other thing about a shorter aiming time that's really nice is it allows you to hit moving targets more easily. because you don't have to lead them as much, and you don't have to depend on them to be predictable for as long, because you don't have to lead them as much, waiting for your gun to aim and for your shell to travel. So lesser amount of lead to aim or to hit fast-moving targets. So that's good. And the last thing is, the lower the aiming time, the easier it is to take snapshots. So, a gun with a 2.3 second aiming time, yeah, it's all right for snap shooting. A gun with a 2.9 second aiming time, not good for snap shooting. Something like an IS-3 with a 3.4 second aiming time, if you snapshot and hit with that, that is just total luck. Some things have aiming times of like 1.7 seconds. That is just amazing for snap shooting. It's almost no aim time at all. Really, really good. Now we're going to look at accuracy. Now the accuracy figure is given at a range of 100 meters. And I honestly don't know exactly how this game mechanic works, but the most important thing to know is that a lower number for accuracy is better. So you can see here that the 88mm gun that the Tiger II can use, it's got an accuracy of .34. Then if you upgrade to the 105mm L52, which is kind of the middle gun on the Tiger II, that is actually less accurate. It's 3.7 accuracy. But when you go back to the fully upgraded 105mm L68, that gun goes back to a 3.4 or a .34 accuracy. So the biggest thing you want to worry about with accuracy is lower number equals better. Now, I think the way that this works is that you can expect your shot to deviate up to .34 meters per 100 meters of travel. I'm not sure if that's accurate or not, so don't quote me on it, but I think that's how it works. And that would make sense for why tanks like an IS are not good sniper tanks, because they have a .36 or a .46 accuracy. So that would mean, if my interpretation of this number is correct, that would mean that every time an IS fires its gun, the shell can deviate almost half a meter in any direction per 100 meters of travel. So if you're firing at a guy who's 400 meters away, your shot can fly almost 2 entire meters, say, to the left or high. Whereas Tiger II firing that same shot with a fully upgraded gun, the Tiger II could expect a drift of only about 1.2 meters, which is substantially less. I'm not sure if that is exactly the way the accuracy works, but I'm pretty sure it is. And anyway, the important thing to take away from it is lower number for accuracy equals better. It's like golf. You want a smaller number for accuracy. Next, we're going to look at penetration and damage. And these stats are given, depending on the ammo types your tank gets, these stats are given in either 3 numbers or 2 numbers. So down here at the bottom, we can see my tank's ammo types. We have armor piercing, composite rigid, which are premium shells, and we have high explosive ammo. So the penetration and the damage listed for these guns corresponds to these types of ammo that can be fired from these guns. So you can see that my average penetration in millimeters is 225. Now this number, the first number, that is for standard armor-piercing ammo. The second penetration number is for premium armor-piercing ammo, which is this armor-piercing composite rigid. So you can see that my armor-piercing composite rigid shells have an average penetration of 285, which is really good. And the last number is for high explosive. So my high explosive rounds can penetrate about 60 millimeters of armor on average, which is pretty terrible. And the damage works the same. The first damage number, that's for your standard AP round. Second damage number, that is for your premium shell round. And the third damage number is for your high explosive ammo. The last thing that we'll look at real quick is the weight of the gun. And the weight of all modules is given in kilograms. So we've got the, here's the weight of the turret in kilograms. It's 13,520 kilograms. The gun is 3,600 kilograms. The engine, 750 kilograms. Tracks weigh 19,000 kilograms. Radio is 150 kilograms. So what you can do with that is you can use that to figure out what upgrades you can put on a tank before you need to upgrade the tracks. And we'll actually talk about that in another tips episode because I want to keep this from getting too much longer. Before we move on to the last little thing I want to talk about is we're going to talk about quickly guns with a howitzer. Okay, this is maybe not the best example ever because this tank has an anti-tank howitzer, so it's got armor-piercing rounds, premium armor-piercing rounds, and high-explosive ammo. So I'm going to have to look for another tank I own with a traditional howitzer. Okay, the Cromwell has a howitzer. Where is it? Okay, so howitzer weapons. How much? This gun is super cheap. Okay, so I fitted this howitzer just so that we can get a better idea of what we're looking at. So here we go. We got a Cromwell with a howitzer on it. Now you can see the howitzer. It only has 2 numbers for penetration and for damage, and that's because it only has 2 types of ammo. It's got standard high explosive and it's got high explosive anti-tank. So the first number we're looking at here for penetration and for damage, that's with the standard high explosive ammo. So you can see that the penetration is very, very bad, but the damage is quite high, 370. And then with the high explosive anti-tank, we have much better penetration but lower damage. The kickoff of that is the HE shells, they're not going to go in, so almost all the damage is going to be mitigated, which means with the heat rounds you'd actually do a lot more damage. But those cost gold or 5,600 credits. So yeah, use those at your own discretion, I guess. Anyway, on a tank that gets such a good regular gun as the Cromwell, there's no reason to use a howitzer anyway. But that's how you read your gun stats. And last thing, real quick, since it kind of goes along with gun stats, so we're going to look at how you read the armor. It is at least labeled over here, which is nice. The gun stats aren't labeled, but this is how you read your armor. Your hull armor and your turret armor, you got 3 numbers for each. The first number all the way on the left, that's the front. So my front hull armor on this Tiger II, that's 150 millimeters. My front turret armor, it's 185 millimeters. My side hull armor, 80 millimeters. My turret side armor, 80 millimeters. My turret rear armor, 80 millimeters. And my rear hull armor, 80 millimeters. So I hope that little bit of information was useful to you guys. I know that there are some people out there, myself included, who played a surprising number of battles before we actually learned how some of these stats work. Mostly gun stats. I didn't know how I didn't understand how the accuracy worked for a really long time. So I hope that was helpful to you guys. Until next time, it's Captain Dorja, and just remember, guys, you can never have enough big guns.